This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure, who are here to make procurement simple. Zero Procure harnesses a network of specialists to ensure that businesses are working with the right suppliers at the right price. Hospitality Meets is delighted to partner with the Zero Procure team and their network to help keep this podcast accessible and free to listen to. Please get in touch with them for a chat. Just click on their link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Katariina Reissaar, front office manager at Juries in Birmingham and absolute rising star of the hotel world. Coming up on today's show, Katariina reveals that not all offices are made equally.
Working in the middle of Manhattan in New York on a very high building in an office where your canteen overlooks to Empire State Building.
Phil tests how high he can get his voice. Would we say lucky enough? And Katariina hints that housekeeping may not have been for her.
It takes me about half an hour to do a duvet and a bed, not even considering that the whole room needs to get done with that time or less.
All that and so much more as Katariina talks us through her story and journey to date. In many ways, Katariina is just getting started, but she's already leaving a positive mark on the industry and we'll be charting her progress with interest. We're here each week telling the stories of the amazing people within hospitality, so please don't forget to give us a like, share and a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. It really does make a huge difference. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, your host, Phil Street. Now, I've had the fortune of meeting today's guest through her continued work and support of the Institute of Hospitality, where she's incredibly active through networking and being the now co-chair of the IOH's first ever youth council. And we'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. For her day job, she is the front office manager at Juries in Birmingham, a 445-bedroom city centre property in the heart of the UK's second largest city. That sounds busy. I am delighted to welcome the absolute rising star that is Katariina Reissaar.
Very good morning, Phil. You certainly did your background work and research, so well done on that one.
Thank you very much. It's something that I didn't do when I first started this, and you get found out very, very quickly. Whilst I can't hope to know everything about you, little bits and pieces here and there just help things move along. Was all of that accurate, by the way?
No, absolutely. It's very, very accurate. And as you said, it definitely is busy. And getting busier and busier, we can't imagine it, but it is. So we're just trying to get and keep up with everything, I guess. But it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, 445 bedrooms is a big property.
It certainly is. And I think I want to say one of the largest in Birmingham. We do have other hotels around who come to that size, close enough.
Yeah.
But I think we are. I might be wrong, but I'm going to be proudly saying that yes, we are one of the biggest.
Yeah, I think there's the Hilton, is it the Metropole or something like that? I don't know if from a rooms base if it's bigger, but certainly I think it's got one of the biggest banqueting suites in all of Europe.
Yes, you might be right. And then we do have a couple of other bigger ones around. Hyatt is one of them that comes height-wise almost as tall as us as well. But yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's not about them. This is about you. How are you anyway?
I'm really good. Thank you very much. Yeah, just this morning even, the weather is starting to actually show some summer finally, which is pretty crazy because I'm quite tired of putting the same scarf on that I've been doing for the 9 months.
Yeah, it's been a funny old year, isn't it, on the weather front?
Oh yes, and I think you always start most of your podcasts with weather talks, no?
Yes, and I recorded one yesterday and we did exactly the same thing. It's the most British of British things to do is to talk about the weather.
And even the foreigners like myself adapt that. Would you look at that? We're not going to go too much into detail for that, but work-wise as well, and well, personal life and work life both. It's just I know how to keep myself busy, and I've always known that, and it's just never stops. Even when the pandemic was on and full ongoing, I managed to still get myself really busy with everything and anything, and I didn't even feel like there was furlough.
Really? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing though, when people who like to stay busy will always find ways to stay busy.
Yeah. And when it quiets down for me, or when there's a day that I have not really much planned, then I genuinely do nothing, and then I feel a bit guilty that, oh, I actually didn't get up to anything today. Let's let's change that.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up too much. You need the down days as well.
Oh yes, everybody does.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, let's get stuck in then. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of your career. How did you end up getting into hospitality in the first place? Where did the spark come from?
Yeah, well, I guess it's been part of me almost most of my life, I think. And it's not like I'm trying to sound like I'm super old already. I'm not, but well, I think I'm not. But I guess it all goes back about maybe 15 years or so, when a really young age, when I was a teenager. My mom was part of the catering company, a manager in there, which then actually eventually became her own company. But I started off very small with her just during the summertime when the school wasn't running. We had like these outdoor catering events for companies who were doing their like staff days out or whatnot. And we were catering, just like barbecuing and all sorts of that kind of stuff, from early hours setting up and then going through the day and then finishing quite late in the evening. But it was always super fun, and it wasn't that I was doing too much in there, but like selling ice cream, starting off very small. And then I always had a little bit of a bossy gene, I think, in me. My brother got my
Oh,
brother got
we'll have
most
to
of it.
explore this.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, my brother was under a terror most of the younger ages, I guess, younger years. But then I started to take over from my mom quite quickly when the years went by, and when we were setting up for these events and putting all the outdoor tents up, which is sometimes a bit of a looks like a rocket science. So
I think
yeah.
you do need a master's degree, don't you, in
Oh yeah, I
tent
honestly,
building?
putting these numbers together and poles and what length and that, it's not as easy as you think.
No, and you get what you pay for when it comes to tents as well. I have learnt this the hard way. We did a stag do once in down in Cornwall in the middle of July. I think that's quite a safe time to go to
Yeah,
Cornwall. The worst storm that they'd ever had in July came in that weekend, and we'd built our
of
tents, and
course.
my tent collapsed around me at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was just blowing a gale outside, and I literally just wrapped my tent around me like a sleeping bag, and that's how I slept.
That is certainly a story to talk about.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever got over that, to be honest. I
Yeah,
still have never been camping again.
yeah. I was gonna ask you, when was the next time, but I'm not surprised that you have never gone again.
Yeah.
But yes, so and then later on, when I got a little bit older as well, it was the catering company was still going, and weddings were happening and all sorts of kind of different events. And then eventually, from actually at the same time that I was going to school, sometimes after school I went to work in the bistro, and then I got into a restaurant, doing my whole summer in there. And then I actually took a little break in hospitality, as such. And when I finished high school in Estonia, I moved over to US, and I became a nanny for 2 years, which it does entail a little bit of hospitality, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
And then after that adventure, I came back to UK, went to uni and started my degree. But at the same time, we're still working in a bar, actually in uni itself. And then I took another break from hospitality and actually went to reinsurance broking for a year, believe it or not.
Obviously.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was a very straightforward decision, and kind of a path to go.
Sometimes you
And
do these things to remind you of why you were on a path in the first place, right?
exactly, exactly. It was a worth going off the trail a little bit, and experiencing something new, and working in the middle of Manhattan in New York on a very high building in an office, where your canteen overlooks to Empire State Building.
Wow.
Yeah, a dream come true. Hey,
Yeah.
and
Tick
actually,
that box.
in a way, it certainly was. And then once this, it was a placement year, so it was a 12-month kind of track of the uni courses. And then I came back to UK and to Bradford where I was studying, and my dad was like, so you're coming from New York and going back to the bar in Bradford in the UK? And I was like, yes. And I was actually quite happy to, that was my natural habitat, so to say.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy it there. And the best part of it was that when all of the students were spending money and drinking on Fridays and Saturdays and, well, all around the week, really, then I got to work and be still part of that fun, but actually earn money. So that was a really, really good thing. And then when I graduated university, I was looking for a graduate program, and that was my very specific condition, that I wanted to get into a graduate program, not just to go on a specific job. And it took me a while to actually get somewhere. And then, of course, at the busiest time of my life, just before the official graduation was happening, when I was flying around Europe, I found the graduate program with Jurisin and Leonardo Hotels, and I applied for it. And when I was in Germany, not planning to come back to UK for about a month or two, they called me to come and to do the assessment center in UK. So I was like, okay then. found another flight and got to UK for about 12 hours to do the assessment center and then fly back to Germany. But I was successful and it paid off, and honestly I wouldn't go back any other way. And I've been part of the Jurisin and Leonardo Hotels now almost 3 years. So I graduated my graduate program officially just about a month ago. And
okay.
Yeah, so it got very official, and then obviously I stayed on and continued with the company, and we'll see where that journey now takes me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things to unpack within all of that. First of all, the travel element,
yes,
and taking you to the US to be an au pair. And how long did you say you did that for? 2 years.
So I did that for 2 years. I went for 1 year, and believe it or not, so I was going to be an au pair for 12 months, and then go back to Estonia as a good child and kid, and go and study law. That was my very specific plan at the time. Right. That just changed very quickly when I got to US.
Right.
But yeah, I was there for 2 years with the family, and that was one of the best things that I could have done, really, because they have become my second family, and I would never ever, they are like almost my blood family, because we became very, very close, and we're still very, very well in touch and keep up. And it's just like my own kids kind of growing up there, because now they're teenagers, and I can't believe that, because they used to be just very, very little when I started with them. But yeah.
And what do you think that experience brought to you in terms of the because I travel comes in many forms. I think travel for me is just about taking yourself away from the place that you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And so you certainly did that, notwithstanding the fact that you have changed countries, massive change in culture, massive change in people. You're now living with a different family as well. How did you cope with all of that? Or did it kind of come naturally to you?
It surprisingly, it did actually come quite naturally to me. That was one of the first flights that I ever took, believe it or not.
Right.
So I had actually been just on my first ever flight on that year, a couple of months before that, to go from Estonia to Austria. Other than that, it used to be just a bus travel, or kind of whatever around Europe, and or car, but mainly bus travel. But I had been almost all around Europe, from north to south to west, to not too much to east, because that would take me to Russia.
Yeah, well, we don't need to go there today.
No. But yeah, and I was always very, very grateful and really happy to see all of the Europe, and I knew that traveling was something that actually, no, I'm lying here. I didn't know at the time that traveling would be such a big part and something that I would really enjoy that much. But then it was one of the first flights, and the whole flight story is a completely different story, and something that sounds like things that wouldn't happen to somebody in a lifetime.
Oh, go on.
Oh no,
Can't leave that out there.
No, so yeah, well, Estonia is such a small place. So when you go and usually fly somewhere like US, you would have to go and change the flight somewhere. So I did. I don't even remember that changed that much or anything. But the flight that I was on from, I think I changed in, I want to say in Germany, but I don't remember too much now. It might have been Finland. But when I got to the flight that took me to New York at the time, I sat somewhere all the way to the end of the big airplane. Like it was 2 seats and then I guess 4 seats and two, or 2 and 3 and 2, something like that.
Right.
And then I had sat down in the back of the airplane and we're starting to get ready, kind of taxiing and getting up in the air. Well, that wasn't, I don't know if we got to the air at the time. A lot of details are fuzzy, I guess, because it was so many years ago. But then at some point, a gentleman came to approach me and said that, well, would you mind swapping the seats, because like my partner is just sitting right next to you and we kind of want to spend the flight together. I was like, yeah, well, no problem. Like, I don't mind. I don't really care where I'm sitting on this plane because, it doesn't matter. And I was like, so where's your seat? Well, his seat was in the first class.
Oh, welcome to your first ever flight.
So, yes, so I swapped with him and I was like, sure, no problem. And I felt like an alien in that first class. People looked at me like, why are you here? But I was so grateful that I actually had that, because I got really, really bad headache on that flight, like something that would make you like extremely sick.
Right.
But in the first class, at least you can put the seat down and kind of lay down. And that really got me through the flight, because it's a long flight as well, I guess about 7-8 hours. So it all went so well, and I'm so grateful that it all happened. But it's just I didn't really expect that at the time,
Yeah, and I can never fly in economy again.
Oh, I got spoiled with that in the US. My host family, whenever we fly, because they took me everywhere that we really went, which I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of that, because they showed me so much of US. But a lot of times we were either in like business class or first class, because my host mom used to fly a lot before the pandemic. So we just had the chances to do that. Or sometimes it was, not particularly in the first class, but it still was really comfortable flight experiences. And now, I'm back in Europe, and because the direct flight from UK to Estonia is Ryanair, then that's what I'm on usually. So not that I'm complaining, they get me from A to B.
Yeah, as long as I mean that's objective number one, right? As long as they arrive, then that's all up in the air at the moment. Pardon the pun.
That's a really
it's
good
such
thing.
fun to travel at the moment, but anyway.
But yeah, so but traveling definitely became then a really, really big part of me. And of course, now living in a completely different country, but all of my family and friends, well, not all of my friends, but a lot of my long-term friends still live back in Estonia. So that means that I actually fly quite often, and it's not just, unfortunate, not just for a holiday, which is still a little bit of a holiday when I go home, because I'm not technically at work or anything. But yeah, it's just part of me now, and I wouldn't really quite imagine that any other way now, and I'm really hoping to incorporate that more into my whole hospitality career as we go forward.
Yep. So within the graduate program that you're on, the apprenticeship program, just talk us through, because people have perceptions of what a graduate program might look like, but some listeners might not have a clue. So just talk us through what your program kind of exposed you to.
Yeah, so graduate program, why it was so attractive to me at the time was because it was always designed to be in different departments. It doesn't really matter where I think you do your graduate program, but you always go through certain elements of the business. You get to experience different sides of it, and I think that's the whole kind of concept of it. And this was a management graduate program, so it was kind of the fact that you started all the way from the bottom. I was super, super lucky again, like in a way like I was in US with the family, because unfortunately not all of the au pairs have as good of an experience as I did.
Sure.
I think a little bit, and maybe that sounds a little bit cocky at the times, but I was very, very lucky with the hotel that I got and the team that was in there, because as the graduate program is designed, I managed to go through every single department of the hotel. And the first hotel that I went into was Leonardo Royal Grand Harbour in Southampton, just right at the docks.
Yeah.
And that
I've
hotel
actually
had...
stayed in that hotel.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Was it a good
It wasn't.
experience?
It was. Yeah, this is, but because it used. If I've got the right hotel, is it? Did it used to be a De Vere?
Yes, it used to be De Vere, the one that looked a
Yeah.
bit like Pyramid.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, we used to because I used to sail out of Southampton
Oh,
on
nice.
cruise ships, and as a staff member, crew member, not.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't off on cruises all the time, and yeah, and that was one of the hotels of choice, really, if you were overnighting before you would join the next day.
Yes. That's what it still is. Sometimes still some of the staff members, but mostly and mainly the cruise passengers who either come or go from the cruises. They stop in Southampton, and they would. Well, it's one of the few hotels that is so close to the terminals and everything. So, but yeah, all in all, that hotel actually had every single department that you could imagine a hotel really having. From a Marco Pier White Steakhouse to just a bar that serves just a different crowd to really big conference area and like meeting rooms to spa and obviously then reception and housekeeping and everything else. So yeah, I went to my very natural and already a department that I had experienced a lot. So I started with the Marco Pier White Steakhouse. I was there for a month or month and a half. Then I moved to the bar. Again, something quite familiar to me. Then the whole Christmas period came and all the Christmas parties and so on. So I moved to the meetings and events department. Again, something that I have already been part of, but new things to learn because in hotel it's all kind of operates a little bit differently. But then when the new year had passed, I started in reception, something that I had never done before. And I was like, don't know, like I have never used the system before. That was something a little bit maybe scary at the time because I genuinely had no idea what I should and would expect in there. But very, very quickly that became my favorite department as my role now reflects front office manager. And yeah, well, unfortunately or fortunately, then the pandemic happened. We would have, with the graduate program, we would have had to change the hotel at that time. So in my graduate program, we should have changed the hotel twice. So we would have done 3 hotels altogether.
Right.
The first hotel was meant to be the one where you do all the departments. And then the second hotel more when you're in a duty manager role. And then the third hotel when you start getting into like a head of department role. So either just kind of assistant somewhere and then working your way up and then securing the head of department position, or whichever way, it works for anybody and everybody. But yeah, ours went very, very differently. So then the pandemic happened. I was extremely lucky and grateful to the general manager, Andy Gray at Grand Harbour Hotel, because he took me as one of his small team to close the hotel. So obviously the day came when he had to announce that we're closing the hotel and most of the people will go on furlough. But then some people had to stay to close the hotel. And for me, that was a bit of a surprise because I had only been in the hotel about 8-9 months compared to obviously a lot of people who had been there for years sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the biggest compliments that he could have told me, really. And I did stay there, and I was one of the last ones to leave the hotel once we actually shut it completely down after a couple of weeks from the announcement. And then I was one of the first ones to come back as well. And then I was one of the very, very few ones, even from that small team, who then kept working 5 days a week because of it. Just the front office was the main one that we, needed the people on. And not everybody had as much of a experience with the systems and so on. So I stayed in there. Then obviously we had to close the hotel again after a few months, which again, I was one of the last ones with a couple of other people to leave the hotel. And then the hotel was shut. But then very soon I had an opportunity to go and work in one of our hotels in Heathrow Airport when that was turned into a quarantine hotel.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a couple of months project, and then I went back to open the Grand Harbour, and we got that all on a full swing. It all came back very quickly, and it definitely got really busy very, very soon after the reopening. But then I managed to secure the position in Birmingham, and then the transition period was a little bit of a time where I just wrapped everything up in Grand Harbour. and then came over to Birmingham, and then that's where I have been ever since. But the graduate program definitely really helped with a lot of it, and I did manage to see almost every single department, and that's what I wanted, and that's what I got.
Yeah, and I suppose then it allows you to make a better decision for something that feels right for you, right, as opposed to, I suppose, I don't know, starting life as a waiter in a restaurant and then just working up through the restaurant. You wouldn't necessarily then get the exposure into the other side of the business. Just those over there.
Yeah, exactly.
What do they do over there?
Yeah, no, 100%, and it just makes me a lot more comfortable being in a hotel as well, especially as a duty manager, I suppose, because I know that I can and help any department that I need, really. If it's housekeeping, I would say maybe not today. But that's and I'm only saying that because I know how hard work that is, and I cannot say how grateful and thankful we are, especially in Birmingham as well, to all of the housekeeping team that works here, because what they do is just absolutely crazy work and crazy job. And to manage all of these bedrooms in such a short period of time as well, it takes me about half an hour to do a duvet and a bed, not even considering that the whole room needs to get done with that time or less.
Yeah.
So no, I would always go anywhere and help any department that needs helping, and that's what the whole graduate program gave me, and that's what the pandemic really gave me as well, because you just had to. You didn't have anybody else in there helping out.
Yeah.
And I think every manager, especially in hospitality, and if you're in a hotels, you should know kind of where these people are coming from and what they're doing daily basis. Because if you don't know, I think it's a lot harder to make effective and efficient decisions day in and out, because you would say that, oh, they didn't do this again, or they didn't do that, but do you know how to consider why this wasn't done, or
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that point on housekeeping, I think it's such a good one. I mean, you take anybody who works in housekeeping out of the equation, right? You don't have a hotel.
No.
Basically, end
No.
of. And I remember was lucky enough to have Joanne Taylor-Stagg on here, who's the general manager of the Athenaeum in London, and she was saying that her housekeeping team have been grateful that they were able to get back up to capacity fairly quickly, because they didn't want her anywhere near the housekeeping, because as you say, they have a system, it's efficient, they know what they've got to do. She comes in, she's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I've got an idea, but is this the right, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's every business is, no job is more important than the other, right? It's all part of the same machine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on that note as well, as you said, in a hotel you can't have a hotel if you don't have housekeeping team. If you for some reason need to close, let's say, restaurant or bar, yes, great. I mean, not great, but there's lots of them around just outside the hotel as well usually. But if you don't have a bedroom to give to a person, that's where it really just comes. And that was what it was during the pandemic and lockdown as well. You could only operate with the bedrooms. You couldn't operate, the bars and the restaurants, if they weren't outdoors, they were closed and you couldn't open them. But you have to have housekeeping to do the bedrooms, because otherwise you don't have a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're leading a team. How have you found that transition into leadership?
As I mentioned earlier, there's the bossy gene was always there.
You have to, if you want to be a good leader, you've got to rein the bossy gene back.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's what I have really learned over the time. So despite the graduate program helping me with the whole managerial part of the business and kind of getting into the role, I didn't really get to the whole team leading part until I got to Birmingham.
Yeah.
Because in Grand Harbour, I was more of a team player than team leader in general. Yes, in department sometimes I had to, take the lead and sort some things out, but I was never a head of department there or a kind of a manager of a team. I was a manager, but it just in a different perspective. When I got to Birmingham, that's when I got a team. And in Birmingham, as we mentioned, it's 445 bedrooms, so it's not the smallest team, especially in reception. So it was quite a lot of people under me, and definitely not as many as some other managers have. But as somebody doing first time kind of the thing and getting the reins of it, it was a sufficient amount. And yeah, it definitely took time to get in there and get hold of it and get an idea of what it actually means to be ahead of that team and leading them. And actually, one of the questions that the general manager at the time asked me when she interviewed me, she asked me quite straightforwardly that, we do have quite a strong team in reception in here, so how do you think you would fit in? And how do you think that you would make the changes? And I was really honest, and I said that, listen, I'm actually quite glad to hear that there's a strong team, because I have a lot to learn from them, and if we need to change anything or do anything, then I would do that together with them. And I think that's one of the biggest things in me as a manager or as a leader. I am part of them. It's not that I'm above them or anything like that. I am part of them, and we work together, and I want, I, as many managers hopefully would say, I would never ask them to do something that I would never do myself.
Yeah.
So despite being a head of department, I still get into operations quite a lot, reception desk and so on. And I want to be there, and I have to be there, because otherwise I wouldn't really know what's going on daily basis if I would sit in an office all day and do everything else that I need to. But I've learned so much about myself, definitely, while being the leader. I know that I can't be very angry and negative and serious, because I just don't know how to do that. I want to solve things in a positive way, and every person has their own story. If there's something that's not quite functioning well, or if there's something that's going a little bit off tracks or sideways, there's a reason for that. And I am there to be a leader, to find these reasons out and find out how we can amend these things and how we can make sure that that person can thrive in the role. So definitely many, many things, and a lot of things still to learn. But one thing that I do know is that as a leader, I want to be there to progress and help these people to progress, and make sure that they get somewhere. And yes, in hospitality, it's hard to keep people sometimes, and the turnover is quite big in terms of staff, and they tend to go off somewhere. But I don't mind that. I actually would love them to do that, and especially when they go and get to somewhere higher in a position. Like if we can't, for example, offer that to them at the time because of the vacancies being full, I would be quite happy for them to go and pursue something higher somewhere else. At least that I know that, they have learned that and they're confident to go and do that.
Yeah. If it's their time to fly, let them fly.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Another wonderful cliche from me there, as always. No, that's cool. So let's talk about the youth council. Well, let's talk about the IOH in general. So, funnily enough, this is weird, right? Because we just did a podcast on this last week. So it's look out for that on the other podcast that I host.
Exactly.
I think I might have plugged this podcast last time on that one, and now I'm doing vice versa. But whatever. So, how did you get involved with the IOH in the first place?
Well, I did tell you that I like to keep myself busy, and even though there's 445 bedrooms to manage in the team, there's still time for everything else, right?
I have a spare 10 minutes this week, so how can I fill that?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much how it was, I guess. At the time when I got involved with the Institute of Hospitality, that was, I think, a year ago, last year in January, February time, I believe, which was still a little bit of the whole pandemic time. So we had a lot more time, right? But then, it had to continue. So that's something that I'm now trying to find time for.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was actually Libby Davis, who used to be my colleague, who then went off to do different things and now is doing event management, which is definitely something that she's really good at. But she got onto Institute of Hospitality and got into the mentoring program. And she was lucky enough to have Robert Richardson as a mentor for her.
Would we say lucky enough?
I don't know. This is recorded, Phil. I can't say much in here. So she was the one who then kind of got me along, and I wanted to get to the mentor program. And I as much as I thought that I can do a good job, I think I could do better if somebody else kind of shows me or guides me in some little other ways.
Yeah.
And I managed to get on Institute of Hospitality, and the first thing that I did was to sign up for the Mentor Me program, which is absolutely great in IOH. And I was paired up with a mentor, and her name is Sarah Ballinger. And I could have not imagined that being a better match at the time, because we are literally, I'm just a little bit younger version of her. So she's gone through anything and everything, and daily life, personality wise and everything. We know what it's like, and we just understand each other really, really well, because we're just so similar.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit, no, I guess I'm a little bit like her, but she likes to travel, and she's great at it, and she flies all around the world now as well for her job. But then a few months down the line, Robert Richardson was, put in a position of CEO, which has gone, I think, really well. And he kind of did a little shout out in LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn was the channel that I got onto it, but to put together the youth council.
Yeah.
And as I still had some time to fill, in my daily life and calendar.
Down to 7 minutes now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I reached out to him and I said that I would love to be part of it, and would love to be part of that idea and kind of get involved with the whole younger parts and younger generations of hospitality, but in Institute of Hospitality as well. And then it's just all kind of started to roll very quickly, and we got together as a team in youth council, and all of these people were super fantastic. Our ideas matched. Everybody kind of brought something different on the board, but it all blended in really well. And we just started to kind of do our thing, and now, year forwards, I think we've been quite successful on what we're doing. We've just done our first live event as well, which was super exciting and went really well. And we just proved to ourselves as well that this is why we're doing it, and this is what we want to see more, and this is the people that we want to do it together with, and kind of march forward and have them on the backside of all of that as well, because there's so much out there's so much talent, there's so much knowledge, and it comes everywhere, every side of the hospitality. Really, it's not just hotels or restaurants or bars. All of the other sides of the business are involved as well, and it's just so great to see. And I would have definitely not imagined all of that going that direction when we first started, and when I first joined Institute of Hospitality, I had no idea. But at the time, you couldn't even have an idea, because that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So thanks to Robert, it all kind of materialized, and we're hoping that this will kind of be forever kind of thing now going forward, and supporting the younger talent and giving them the little push and confidence that they need.
Yeah, but also it bridges the gap between generations.
Yes.
It gives everybody a seat at the table, and that's the thing that I like about it the most, is that in order to affect anything positively, you have to keep as many people as possible at the table for that discussion. Yeah, I mean, giving everybody a voice in whatever is being discussed, I think is great. But also the creativity comes in many different forms from many different places. So.
Yeah, and that's what we've definitely seen as well, and the response that we have gotten back from other like AIH members or student members in Institute of Hospitality has been just so positive. And there are people who want to get involved, and there are people who want to kind of match the same purposes that we are kind of preaching about, and to make sure that other people know that hospitality is a career.
Yeah.
We've all started somewhere, and we've all done kind of the nice bar jobs in a uni bar where you have the rugby teams doing all the pleasant stuff on their socials, and
yes, drinking responsibly, I think it's called, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's so responsible. Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
So it's a nice job to have at the time. I'm surprised that I stayed in hospitality after that. But it is the fun part. But just kind of giving the people the idea, the young people especially, and their families, I guess, that you can progress, and you can progress so fast Me, who I had never been in hotels before, I am leading a reception team in a hotel that has 445 bedrooms. It's just something that, again, I would have never imagined even when I started the graduate program.
Yeah.
But within just a couple of years, even despite the fact that the pandemic was in between and all of the hotels were shut, I still got there, and I have such a long way to go up, but I know that it's possible, and I know that I can do it. I just need to kind of want it,
Yeah.
and put myself out there. But that's what it's all about, and I think that's what we want everybody to kind of know and understand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep surrounding yourself with good people who give you advice. Doesn't have to be good advice all the time, but just to help broaden your own view of something. It's
I
good to
think
be
it's
surrounded by
best if
people.
it's not good advice at all times, because otherwise you
Yeah,
wouldn't know what the good advice is.
yeah, that's very true. And sometimes you can't know if it's good advice until you actually put yourself in a situation whereby
Exactly.
you're acting it
Or
out.
bad
But
advice. Yeah,
yeah,
because that
indeed.
also happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So, from your career so far, do you have any funny stories that spring to mind? I mean, apart from being upgraded to first class in a jet.
Hospitality itself is quite a funny thing itself, I guess. And I think the funniest parts are the ones that you don't always realize at the time that it's funny. But when you are in a hotel on a kind of Friday afternoon, evening, when, you have almost the full hotel coming in, and then just everything can go absolutely, I don't know what's the appropriate word here to use.
Yeah,
But
I
everything
understand.
just, yeah, happens at the same time. Nothing during the week. It's all nice, smooth, everything goes well. But then when you need everything to run super well, that's when everything just goes downhill. Your fire alarm goes off, or perhaps the lift malfunctions, or what. And it's not like 3 o'clock this happens, 5 o'clock this happens. No, 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 it all happens at
Yeah,
3:05, when just you don't need it to happen.
when that
And then
big
when you just,
table of 20 comes in.
yeah, exactly, the
Yeah,
one that you missed out from the list. I think that's when you then couple of days look back and you're like, how did we even do this? Like, how is that even possible? But I think that's the beauty of hospitality, and those funny stories or fun stories, they definitely happen all the time. So it's hard to pick the best ones out, I think. But it's certainly just the kind of small things aligning at the wrong time. But
yeah, but
that's,
they teach you essential skills, really. Because that's kind of life, really. Here we go. I'm going deep again.
oh, very
But
deep, Phil.
yeah, but stuff happens all the time, and actually,
It
your ability
definitely,
to respond to it
yeah, it certainly
is
tells you
how
the
you
life
win.
skills. You need to learn how to not walk out of the door at the time,
Yeah,
because that's maybe something that you definitely want to do at the time. But no, you're right, and it's certainly the resilience. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I think nowadays resilience is something that you just have to have, because there are always so many things happening. It might not just be at the work, or it might be the personal life, or whatever. But I think what you learn from them is that, okay, everything happens at that time, and it's not great, and you might not know what to do then. But then you realize after, it all passes, and there is a
yeah,
solution to absolutely everything. And it's not like the world, will touch wood, but it's not going to collapse on you,
yeah.
because
Please
there is
do
a
touch wood. Yeah,
it's just, there's a solution genuinely for every single situation, and you can always get out of it. You might not know the answer at the time, but you will find it. And in hospitality, if you don't know how to find it, there is somebody next to you who will.
yeah,
Because that's what it just brings together, isn't it? It brings together all of these people with different experiences in their own lives, personal lives, with different experience from their work life. And there's a solution somewhere in there. Yeah, and you might not even know that these people could help you in those ways, but then situations like that definitely bring it out. And
yeah.
that's when it really just turns into a bit of an anecdote afterwards. You're like, you know what happened, this happened.
Oh yeah, and
So yeah.
these anecdotes come up in your mind at the most inappropriate moments as well. Like I'll remember stories from when I was a right old ragamuffin, when I was I used to tear it up. I did, and and then I think to myself, God, was that me? did I, back in my early career, did I really do that? My God. I need to sit down with that young man and give him a piece of my mind. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, but that's all part of development, right? And
100%.
I think the key thing with all of that is as you said, there's always going to be somebody who knows more than you. So,
Yep,
and also be in a position, I suppose, when stuff does go wrong. If you did everything that you could to prevent that, then just own the fact that that happened. And,
yep,
it's just one of those things we learn. Let's try and make sure it doesn't happen again and we all move forward.
exactly.
Great. So, final question before I let you get on your way. What would be your top 3 reasons for someone to come and join hospitality?
Oh, I think choosing the three out of everything is very hard.
I'm glad to hear it.
Well, did you want me to say that? Oh, I only have two, so we might need to think about the third one
Yeah. No.
now. No, for myself, I think one of the biggest things is flexibility. Yes, you sometimes have some crazy hours and whatnot, but for me, I've always been the type of a person who loves to sleep in the morning. So for me, doing like evening shifts, I would be still awake at 11, p.m. midnight. Doesn't matter whether I'm working in the morning or not.
Yeah.
But during the evening shift where I get to just sleep in the morning and then get on with my day a little bit later on, that just helps. But then at the same time, sometimes it's really good to just wake up really early in the morning when everything is just super quiet, and you walk to work and you're like, oh, it's actually really nice when the whole city hasn't woken up yet. So it's good to see the contrast, but it's just the flexibility, because I don't know many other jobs in other industries where you can say that, oh, this Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm taking off and going to, somewhere where I have never been in England or even abroad sometimes, if you're really adventurous.
Yeah.
And it's actually good because the weekends are busiest everywhere and anywhere anyway. So if you take the time off in the middle of the week to go somewhere, you actually get to experience properly as it is, because you don't need to think about the big crowds or things like that. So
Damn good point that is. Yeah. God, I never thought of that.
Did you not?
Actually, no. Yeah, you're the first person that's ever said that. Yeah.
Really? Okay, well
Mm.
there we go. That goes down in history with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I've experienced that so much, and I do find not that I don't love Birmingham, because what's there not to love? I do tend to go somewhere away almost, well, not every week, but very often, just to even see my friends down in Southampton, or go to London, or other cities and towns where we have my hotels in that I can just go and visit and kind of get away. And it's brilliant to do it during the weekdays. But then definitely the
There's a world
flexibility.
out there for sure.
Yes, there's a world out there. So one of the first things would be flexibility. The other thing, second reason, I guess, would be the fact that I just spoke about, that the career progression, the fact that you can go from the the lowest of the low to highest of the high, I guess, or the toppest of the top, and anything is possible. And it's not even just moving from bottom to the top, it's also sideways, because you can go, you find that, oh, this is maybe not the department or the section of the business that I want to be part of, but maybe I'm better at something else. And you can move all the way across, because even people in our hotel, and especially the managers on the top as well, that we have, they have been part of the office jobs, but they've been operational and they've tried it all out in different ways. Because you have always the sides, the conference side where you need to talk to the clients and get them booked into the conference rooms, or the finance side, or whichever. So there's many people that I know, especially here in the Birmingham hotel, that have worked their way through different departments and then found themselves where they are most comfortable, and where they know that they can put all of their skills to work.
Yeah.
So and there's so many people in my company, but also through the networking that I've learned from Institute of Hospitality, and so that they've they started as just washing dishes, or just being in reception, and now they're general managers, or whichever way you want to see it. So
Yeah.
100%. And I don't think that's possible everywhere. A lot of other sectors and in other industries, And not that it's a bad thing, but you would need to go and get another degree to get higher, or you need to learn other things. But it's just, I think in hospitality, it is the beauty of the fact that you can learn things on the job. And even the like a kind of admin side of it, getting into P&Ls and stuff like that. Yes, you might not be the greatest at it, but there will be a way to get there, and somebody can support you on this if you want to go higher.
Yep.
And then the final, I think, well, there, as I said, there's so many, but I think one of the other things is just the benefits that come with the hospitality. The fact that everything, even if you work in the hotels and you want to go and travel around even the world or whichever, you can go and do that. There's nothing that holds you back. And if you are part of the bigger hotel groups, well, I don't know if Juris and Leonardo is the biggest, but it's definitely on an average side, and we do have hotels across all of the UK and Ireland and also in Europe, so we get to go and experience them and at a very affordable rates for us as well. Yeah. So again, not something that you can do with every industry and everywhere. So, and there's so many other things, the awards that are being done every year across all the world, really, the recognition, it's really good, and it's something that definitely motivates you and wants you to get higher, and something that wants you to make a mark and prove yourself to everybody else as well. And yeah, I think these are the kind of top three in a nutshell.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, well, I mean, look, I have been wanting to get you on the show for quite some time. Life gets in the way, of course, but we got there in the end. I think you're absolutely on the path to where you're definitely where you should be, because the hospitality definitely suits you. You seem to resonate with it as well, importantly. And no, I wish you continued success, and I'll be we'll maybe get you back in a year's time to see how you're progressing.
Maybe indeed. Let's no pressure, but
yeah,
we'll try to get there. But no, thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate that.
No problem at all. And thanks again for your time.
No problem. Well, thank you for inviting, and have a good day and good week ahead.
You too. Thanks, Katariina.
Thank you, Phil.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And there we have it. Katariina has developed an excellent start to her career and has not been afraid to test her comfort zone so far. We wish her continued growth and look forward to seeing where her career takes her. We will, of course, be back next Wednesday with another cracking story from hospitality. So until then, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.